Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week I want to make a mould for a coach roof. See you in a minute. Now, as I've said recently, I've moved up a gauge in model railway stuff, and I'm moving into areas where I need fairly big things, and I need some coach roofs doing this week. So let's have a look, see what we've got to try and do and the sort of size it's going to need to be. Now, I've done this before in O gauge, but we're going up a size from that now. Gresley coaches, which is what I'm building, that one's still a work in progress. They have a peculiarly shaped domed end to the roofs on them. The profile along is flat, but when you get to the end you get this curve in both directions on the roof. And I have in the past done castings for the roofs on these. Now I'm moving up to gauge 1, things are a bit bigger. As you can see from that coach, things getting a bit more serious. And what I've got to do is to try and get that sorted, because you can't really scratch build something like that very well. Now, I've got a good start on this, I think. When I was at an exhibition down in Swindon a couple of weeks ago, I picked up some roofs for, well, I picked up a whole set of brass etches and roofs for some Pullman coaches, which are slightly bigger in terms of length, and the end profile is totally different. However, they are exactly right for width, and the end profile is not that far off. With a little bit of infilling and smoothing, I can get them to fit to the ends, because there's a sort of a dome on the end of the coach as well that it has to fit to. I could get there. These are too long, but it's a good starting point. Now, rather than butcher a perfectly good roof, which I'm going to need, what I'm going to do is to make a mould and cast off this one, and then I can make one like this in resin, and then I can get to work with shaping it, getting it the right shape, slightly shorter, and then I can again start again with the new master I've got and make another mould. So I need a box or a tray making to get that, which is about 700mm, something like that, I think. It's going to need, the box is going, or the tray is going to need to be at internal dimensions about 115mm, 4 or 5 inches. It's going to need to be a little bit longer, so 650mm perhaps, something like that. It's 2 foot long, something. And then the depth, and I'm going to need to do it deep enough and think about quite how I'm going to make it so that I can make a 2-piece mould, because although I could fill all these sides in round here with wax or filler or whatever and just do a casting like that with a 1-piece that you pour into the mould like that, you end up with a piece of solid resin all the way along there, which is quite heavy when it's at the top of a coach. You get an unstable sort of loading in. There's quite a lot of weight high up on the coach, and I don't really want that, so I want to try and replicate this as much as I can. It doesn't matter if they're a bit rough and they don't quite work, because you can body fill and manage this, but I would like to be able to get something that gets me somewhere near. I've got an old kitchen door which I'm going to use as a base for this, because I want something that the RTV, the rubber compound that I use, silicone stuff, won't stick to, because you need to be able to pull this thing out of a mould and pull the mould out of the mould box. So let's cut up the timber and see what we've got and see where we go from there. That's got all the components for the box itself. I clamped all these together with the ends squared off with the square, and then ran them again through the mitre saw just to make sure everything is exactly the same length. Those are going to go one either side like that, and I've got two ends which will screw on the end, and that will make the box. I want to screw it together sort of squarely and accurately, purely and simply because what will happen next is that the thing will have the roof placed in it at the bottom and a layer of RTV rubber poured over it, which will leave obviously the void underneath it. But then I want to take the sides off the mould, take the piece out of the mould, turn it upside down, and then we can cast the remaining part on it, which is why we need such a deep box. That's made the box. I've screwed it all together, but I've just undone the bottom screws now. Take that out, and then I can attach the roof to it. It needs to be sealed down all the way around properly, so I'm going to need to make sure that's really firmly glued down. Marked out the two sides where this is going to actually meet the base. Got myself some rubber bands just to hold it down while it dries. I'm going to glue that down, and then we'll worry about sculpting in the ends with whatever I use. Maybe plasticine's good. I've got some proper filleting wax as well that I've used in the past, but I'm just going to use this canopy glue to glue the actual roof onto the base. It's a fairly fine line I've got to draw between something that's holding it down and sealing it and being so sticky that when I take the mould apart I don't want it to lift that out. This has got to break at this line effectively, so we'll see how we get on with that in due course. So that's got the base lines sorted. Just put this in. It's water based, so should be able to clean up after it, although there's not a great deal to clean up. So we've got the canopy glue on in the lines that we need it to be in. I've got some rubber bands just to hold this lightly down while it goes off into position. Now the roof has been stuck to the backing of melamine covered MDF. What I need to do now is to seal this end, or both ends, so that the silicone that I pour doesn't run into the void underneath. So to seal that up, I've got some tooling wax, which is something I got from one of the glass fibre suppliers. Basically it's like a soft wax, and it's good for filling up voids and cracks because it'll just pull out when you've finished. But if I just push it down, like you can see, what I'm going to do now is just start and go around with the screwdriver, smooth that off. That's it now, that's got the thing done. Got most of the wax off the top surface as well, it just rubs off with your finger. Smooth the rest over. So that's now ready to actually make a start and put it back together as a complete half mould. Right, so I've just put a fillet of wax all the way around the corners to a depth that I think we're going to be pouring the rubber to, the silicone. So that should hopefully have sealed all the places that any silicone could creep out sideways out of the mould. Put a blob in at each end which will give me some sort of a register when we put it back together. I'm just going to put a couple of risers now, one where there's obviously been one before, and then a couple of smaller ones at either end, just to be able to pour the resin in and for the air and resin to come up out of when we've got the whole thing poured. Now I don't want to waste too much silicone, and I don't know how much this is going to take, so I'm just going to pour some water in now. It should hold okay, because if it's not going to hold water it's not going to hold the silicone. Pour it to a depth that I think I want to go to, then I can pour it back out from here back into this container, make a mark on the level as to where it's been, and that'll give me roughly the amount that I need. You need enough for it to be self-supporting, and it's interesting, I'm getting some little bubbles from the one corner here of the roof, so there's obviously some getting in underneath that roof, so there's a little bit of work to be done to just seal that up while we're at it. Right, that gives me a good measure of how much we've got in there. Now I mix the whole of the first tub that I bought. I have got another 3/4 of a tub that I've had for a while that's of slightly unknown quality, which I can probably top it up with later. You can always put this stuff on top of itself and it'll stick together. Now the mould has gone off and I've left it a few days to go really solid, so that's now a good solid block of rubber. To get it flat I am going to just take the little pore holes out that I left in if I can, and then we can trim around them. Just strip the mould apart, we can get the wax off it, turn it upside down.
William was having an attack of Cairo fever. He hoped he might find a cure in the freedom of the desert. They stopped 2 hours out to stretch their legs and sip some refreshing lime juice and water. The wind was
It's interesting to see that after a week, when I poured water into the mould to see how much resin it would need, some of it got in underneath. And it's interesting to see it's still there over a week after. I'm just putting the Vaseline all the way along the joints now. I'm just, where I'd used wax previously around the edge of this now, I'm just running the Vaseline into that crack as well, all the way around the edge. In the corners, we'll get the other resin, silicone on the go. And hopefully we'll get the other half poured. Now I've just stripped the ends off the mould. I think it's dry. I'm not quite sure yet whether the silicone is fully cured, but I'm just going to give it a gentle move all the way down to get the side away from the forms. Just that sort of meniscus along the top edge tends to stick slightly, and it just wants easing off a bit. It's certainly separating all right, which is good. A little bit of sticking here somewhere, yeah, but we're getting there. And sure enough, there we have the two parts of the mould. Needs a bit of cleaning up, and all I've got to do then is just get rid of some of the wax, the Vaseline. And what will happen now, hopefully, if this comes fully apart, which it's just about to, is that will lie down flat now, because there isn't the strength in that, and it will need to be within the mould to do it, because you can get distortion like that if you're not careful. Put that in first, turn it out from the mould, the other half, remove the roof itself, turn it upside down, and I hope there'll be enough strength within that top one, because it's thicker, to be able to sit on top and leave the void underneath. There's a little bit of suction there. But give it time, it'll come up, I think. Yeah, it's coming. That's coming out. But we'll just lift that out now. I think it should do. So that can go onto there, and then we place the upside down roof back in here. So that's now back in there. I think I'm going to now just put one end on down the far end, and then we can put this back on top, and it should give us a void in which we can pour our resin. And
the battle, Monty warned, will be a real roughhouse. To provide a distraction to cover the move, a skeleton crew of 10th Armoured Wireless operators pattered on at great length about a training operation in progress, who took considerable enemy fire in their cloth guts. The tank groups and their support vehicles moved out of staging areas Murrayfield and Melting Pot, which were camouflaged with ordinary netting. It had proved impossible to produce enough.
Take the end off. I'm not sure whether it's encouraging or discouraging. There's been no spillage out, so that means one of two things. Either the resin hasn't got to the ends, in which case we've got a problem, we'll have some air pockets, or we've actually got it right and this lying one on top of another has actually sealed and kept the resin in. But there's not a lot I can do until I take them out to find out, but it is starting to go hard now, so we'll wait until it's fully gone and we can turn it upside down and have a look. I've stripped one side off, and again there was a little bit of seepage which is just cleaned off nicely. One of the reasons I've used the melamine covering on the MDF is that it resists the resin sticking to it. So it's time to have a quiet look and see if we've got anything. Well, we've certainly got resin all the way down to the end, which is good. And what's more, we appear to have, oh, this is looking good. I wasn't sure whether or not the resin would get into all of these strengthening ribs, but it has. There's an air bubble there, which I'm not worried about. There's an air bubble there, which I'm not worried about. There's 2 or 3 big air bubbles, but I can fill those with filler. But certainly, as far as the thing is concerned, it looks like it's working okay. There's a little bit of flash on the side of the roof, but again, really not a problem. That's what sandpaper's for. and on the ends. So let's see if we can get this out. It's still a little bit flexible, but I just can't wait really. I think that's the answer. There we go. Yeah, there's definitely a big hole, a couple of air bubbles, one there, and some smaller ones, one at either end. It's interesting they're in the same sort of places relative to what we had, and that's why I was trying to rock the stuff through, but really that is just nothing I'm worried about at all. I'm really pleased with that. It's given me an identical, I hope, copy what I started with. So just clear off some of the flashing. This is where, well, this one or one like it will be going ultimately. They're 3D printed coaches that I've been making in panels for the gauge 1, and with the modifications to the end they'll fit up against the resin cast ends that I've got to go with the coaches. So I'm pretty delighted with that. There's, as I say, minimal amount of filling, but that really isn't an issue at all to fill and smooth those out. Well, it's been another good day in the shed. I've been gluing up some of the gauge 1 railway boxes, and we've got one of these roofs. Well, for a first attempt anyway, I'm really pleased with it. I think we can perfect it a bit more, I'm sure, with a bit of agitation, a bit more swilling back and forth when we're filling the mould up. It gave me a bit longer than I thought it would, the pour, so I can probably spend a bit more time getting the air bubbles out, but on the whole I can live with that. It really isn't a problem. That the small amount of filling is not anything that I wasn't getting in. You know, I've done these in gauge O, but of course this is significantly larger, and it's a significantly larger risk in terms of money, because there's probably 4 kilograms of silicone gone into that mould. Certainly 3, no, probably 4. So, you know, you're talking 70 or 80 pounds probably overall, and then there's another, you know, 5 quid's worth of resin or whatever. To get one out, yes, it's quite expensive for 70 pounds, but if I can get half a dozen out, that's £10 a piece, and diminishing from there on in cost, and I've got quite a few of these that I want to make, so I'm really happy with that, and it's got me a supply that I couldn't have got other than finding them second hand perhaps, but it opens the way forward for doing Pullman coaches, LNER coaches, and I've got a diesel multiple unit that uses a similar roof profile, I think, so maybe that will come in as well. So all in all, really happy with that. Good day and good result. Hope you enjoyed the video. Look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be doing something different in the shed. See you then. Bye.